Will Byers just froze 3 Demogorgons in mid-air and snapped their bones like Vecna does to his victim. After 9 years of being the kid who disappeared, the kid who got possessed, the kid who everyone thought was weak, Will just proved he's got powers. Real powers. But here's the question nobody's asking. Why? Why does Will Byers have these abilities? Where did they come from? And the biggest mystery of all, are they permanent or will they disappear once Vecna is defeated? The Duffer Brothers just dropped the first 4 episodes of Season 5, and the ending of Episode 4 changed everything we thought we knew about Will. So in this video, I'm breaking down exactly how Will got his powers, what those powers actually are, whether he's as strong as 11, and if this connection to the Upside Down will last forever or vanish when the final battle ends. Let's start with what actually happened in Episode 4, because this moment has been building since 1983. The military base in Hawkins is under attack. Demogorgons are everywhere. People are dying. 11 is stuck in the Upside Down with Hopper, and Vecna himself steps through into the real world to taunt Will face to face. Vecna grabs Will telekinetically, lifts him into the air, and says something that explains everything. He tells Will that he chooses children because they're weak in body and mind, easily broken, easily controlled, perfect vessels. Then he says the most important line in the entire season. He tells Will, "And you were the first, and you broke so easily. You showed me what was possible, what I could achieve." Vecna is admitting that Will was his test subject, his experiment, the first kid he ever tried to connect to the hive mind back in Season 1, and it worked. It worked so well that Vecna spent the next 4 years planning to do the same thing to 11 more children, but here's where Vecna made his biggest mistake. He underestimated Will. He thought breaking Will and connecting him to the hive mind would make him weak and controllable. Instead, it gave Will access to the same powers Vecna uses, so Vecna lets Will drop, confident that the Demogorgons will finish him off. Mike, Lucas, and Robin are all about to die. 3 separate Demogorgons in 3 different locations are closing in for the kill, and that's when Will remembers what Robin told him earlier in the season. She said that she spent her whole life looking for answers from other people when she had all the answers inside herself the whole time. She just needed to stop being scared of who she was. Will closes his eyes. He thinks about the first time he met Mike and Mike asked if they could be friends. He thinks about drawing with crayons and showing his art to Joyce. He thinks about building Castle Byers with Jonathan in the woods. All these happy memories flood his mind, and then it happened. Will's eyes go white, just like Vecna's eyes. He raises his arms, and all 3 Demogorgons freeze in mid-air across Hawkins. Will can see through their eyes. He's connected to all of them at once through the hive mind, and with arm gestures that look exactly like what Vecna does, Will snaps their limb. The Demogorgons die. Will lowers his arms, wipes the blood dripping from his nose just like 11 does when she uses her powers, and stares into the distance with this look of pure determination. Episode 4 ends, and fans absolutely lost their mind. But most people don't realize this. Will doesn't actually have powers the way 11 has powers. The Duffer Brothers confirmed this in interviews right after the episodes dropped. What Will has is something completely different and honestly way more complicated. Ross Duffer explained it like this: it's different in that he's able to channel Vecna's powers. The powers aren't within him. He's able to channel these powers from Vecna and use it sort of like puppeteering. Matt Duffer added that Will taps into the hive mind and then he can manipulate anything within the hive. So he can control monsters, vines, anything connected to the Upside Down. But he can't open a door because a door isn't part of the hive mind. This is huge. It means Will isn't telekinetic like 11. He can't move objects with his mind. He can't throw cars or lift people who aren't connected to Vecna. What he can do is hijack Vecna's control over the Upside Down and use it against him. It's like Will hacked into Vecna's brain and stole the password to control all his monsters. And here's the really important part. Will's powers are proximity based. The Duffer Brothers confirmed that if Will isn't close to the hive mind, he can't access or tap into it. It's like a radio signal. The closer Will gets to the Upside Down or to Gates or to Vecna himself, the stronger his connection becomes. The farther away he is, the weaker it gets. This explains why Will felt totally normal when he was living in California in Season 4, but the moment he came back to Hawkins, all his symptoms returned. So now the big question, how did Will get this ability? Why is he connected to the hive mind when nobody else who survived the Upside Down has these powers? Barb died there. Eddie died there, Bob died there, Steve, Nancy, and Robin all went there and came back fine. What makes Will special? The answer is in the very first scene of Season 5. We finally see what really happened to Will during those 7 days he was missing in Season 1. The episode opens with a flashback to November 12th, 1983, 6 days after Will disappeared. We see young Will hiding in the Upside Down version of the library, holding a rifle, actively defending himself against a Demogorgon. But here's the part that changes everything. We see Vecna approach Will, and Vecna connects attention tentacle directly into Will's mouth. That tentacle links Will to the hive mind. It physically changes Will's body. It alters his blood. It makes him part of the Upside Down's collective consciousness. This is called flaying, and it's the same process Vecna used on himself when he was a kid. There's a stage play called Stranger Things: The First Shadow that tells Henry Krill's backstory. In that play, we learn that Henry wandered into a cave system when he was a child and got transported to Dimension X, which is the pure form of the Upside Down before it became corrupted. While he was there, the Mind Flayer flayed him. It connected him to the hive mind. It changed his blood, and that's how Henry got his psychic powers. The Mind Flayer is the source of all these abilities. It's a creature from another dimension that exists as a hive consciousness. When it flays someone, it physically alters them at a biological level. Their blood mutates. Their brain chemistry changes. They become capable of channeling the hive mind's power. That's what happened to Henry Krill, and that's exactly what happened to Will Byers. When Vecna connected that tentacle to Will's mouth in Season 1, he was flaying him. Vecna was making Will part of the hive mind. He was changing Will's body so that Will could be used as a spy, a vessel, a tool for Vecna's plans. But what Vecna didn't realize is that flaying someone also gives them potential to access the hive mind's powers themselves. Will just never knew how to do it until Season 5. This explains so much. It explains why Will could communicate through lights in Season 1. He was unconsciously using his connection to the Upside Down to manipulate electricity. It explains why Will was possessed by the Mind Flayer in Season 2. He was already part of the hive mind, so the Mind Flayer could just take over his body whenever it wanted. It explains why Will has visions and can sense when gates open or when Vecna is near. He's literally plugged into the same network Vecna uses to control everything. In Season 2, we learned that everything in the Upside Down is connected. The vines, the Demogorgons, the Mind Flayer's particles, all of it shares one consciousness with Vecna at the top controlling it all. It's like the internet, but evil. Vecna is the main server, and everything else is connected to him. When Joyce, Jonathan, and Nancy burned the Mind Flayer out of Will at the end of Season 2, they thought they severed his connection, but they didn't. They just weakened it temporarily. Will admitted in Season 5 that his connection to the Upside Down was never truly severed. It's always been there, lurking under the surface. The closer he gets to Hawkins, the stronger it becomes. By episode 4 of Season 5, the hive mind is closer than it's ever been. There are gates all over Hawkins. The barriers between dimensions are breaking down. Vecna is more active than ever, and all of that amplifies Will's connection to the point where he can finally tap into it consciously. But here's what makes this even more interesting. Will isn't the only person Vecna has flayed in Season 5. In the first 4 episodes, Vecna kidnaps 13 children from Hawkins. He takes them into the Upside Down, and we see him connecting those same tentacles into their mouths, just like he did to Will. He's flaying all of them. He's making them all part of the hive mind. Vecna's plan is to use these 13 kids as vessels. He thinks that because they're children, they'll be weak and easy to control. He wants to reshape them, mold them into extensions of his will, and use them to spread the Upside Down into the real world. But if flaying someone gives them potential to access hive mind powers, that means all 13 of those kids might develop abilities too, including Holly Wheeler. This is terrifying and brilliant at the same time. Vecna is creating an army of psychic children without realizing that they could turn against him if they learned to control their connection the way Will did. The final battle of Stranger Things might not just be 11 versus Vecna, it might be 11 and Will and 13 other kids with powers all working together to take Vecna down from the inside. Now, let's talk about what Will's powers actually look like when he uses them, because the details matter. When Will activates his abilities, his eyes turn completely white. Not just cloudy or glazed over, pure white, exactly like Vecna's eyes when he's using his powers. This is visual proof that Will is tapping into the same source of energy that Vecna uses. Will also gets a nosebleed, just like 11 does. This is significant because nosebleeds in Stranger Things are a sign of psychic strain. When someone uses telekinetic or telepathic powers, it takes a physical toll on their body. Blood vessels burst, energy drains. The more power you use, the worse the nosebleed gets. 11 has had nosebleeds since Season 1. Now Will has them too, but Will's powers manifest differently than 11's. 11 can move objects, throw people, create barriers, open gates, enter minds, and do all kinds of telekinetic and telepathic things. Her powers come from within her own body. They're part of her genetics, enhanced by the experiments Dr. Brenner did on her. She doesn't need to be near the Upside Down to use them. She just needs to focus and channel her emotions. Will can't do any of that. He can't pick up a car with his mind. He can't throw a person across a room unless that person is connected to the hive mind. His powers only work on things that are part of the Upside Down. Demogorgons, demobats, vines, particles, anything Vecna controls. But within that limitation, location, Will is incredibly powerful. When Will used his abilities in episode 4, he controlled 3 Demogorgons simultaneously in 3 different locations across Hawkins. He could see through all their eyes at once. He knew exactly where Mike, Lucas, and Robin were, even though he wasn't physically near any of them. He could sense the Demogorgons closing in, and he stopped all 3 attacks at the same moment. Then he killed them. And the way he killed them is crucial. He snapped their limbs using the exact same bone-breaking technique that Vecna uses on his victims. Remember Max in Season 4? Vecna broke her arms and legs while she was floating in the air. That's his signature move. And Will just did the same thing to 3 Demogorgons at once. This means Will has access to Vecna's specific style of telekinesis. He can manipulate bodies that are part of the hive mind in the same brutal way Vecna does. It's not gentle telekinesis like Eleven uses. It's violent, aggressive, bone-shattering power. And it's terrifying to watch because we've only ever seen the villain do this before. Now the hero can do it too. People are already theorizing about how far Will's powers can go. If he can control Demogorgons, can he control Demobats? Can he control the vines that cover the Upside Down? Can he manipulate the gates themselves? Can he shut down entire sections of the hive mind by overwhelming them? Can he take control of Vecna's body since Vecna is also part of the hive mind? The Duffer Brothers said we'll see how far Will can take it as the season continues. That suggests Will's abilities will grow stronger in the remaining episodes. Maybe he'll learn to control more creatures at once. Maybe he'll figure out how to use the hive mind to track Vecna's location. Maybe he'll even learn to resist Vecna trying to control him back, because that's the real danger here. The hive mind connection works both ways. Will can see what Vecna sees, but Vecna can also see what Will sees. When Will taps into the hive mind to use its power, he's opening a door in his mind, and Vecna can walk through that door just as easily as Will can. This makes Will both the group's greatest weapon and their biggest vulnerability. In Season 2, we saw how this two-way connection works. The Mind Flayer possessed Will and used him as a spy. Every time Will was around the group, the Mind Flayer could see through his eyes and hear through his ears. Will tried to fight it, but the Mind Flayer was too strong. It took over Will's body completely and almost got everyone killed. They had to burn the Mind Flayer out of him using heat, which is the hive mind's weakness. Now in Season 5, Will is plugged back into that same system. He's older, stronger, and more aware of what's happening. He can resist Vecna's influence better than he could in Season 2. But the risk is still there. Every time Will uses his powers, Vecna knows. Vecna feels it. And Vecna could potentially use that connection to hurt Will or manipulate him, or even possess him again. This is why Will's powers might not be permanent. The Duffer Brothers made it very clear that Will's abilities are proximity-based and connected to the hive mind. If the hive mind is destroyed, if Vecna is killed, if all the gates close permanently, Will's connection would be severed. He would go back to being a normal kid with no powers at all. His abilities would disappear because the source of those abilities would be gone. Think about it like this. Imagine your phone connecting to Wi-Fi. As long as you're near the router, you have access to the internet. You can browse websites, stream videos, do all kinds of things, but the moment you move out of range, the connection drops. You lose access. The Wi-Fi isn't inside your phone, you're just borrowing it from an external source. That's exactly how Will's powers work. Will is borrowing power from the hive mind. He doesn't generate it himself. He's not like Eleven, who has powers built into her DNA from the experiments. Will is more like a psychic hacker who figured out how to access someone else's network. As long as that network exists and he's close enough to it, he can use it. But if the network shuts down, he loses everything. This has huge implications for the ending of Stranger Things. We know the show has to end with Vecna defeated and the Upside Down permanently closed. That's the only way Hawkins can be safe. But if closing the Upside Down means Will loses his powers, is that a good thing or a bad thing? On one hand, Will would finally be free from the nightmare that's haunted him since he was 12. On the other hand, he'd be giving up incredible abilities that could define who he becomes. Some fans think Will might choose to keep the connection open even after Vecna is defeated, just so he can keep his powers. But that seems unlikely. Will isn't the kind of person who would risk the world's safety for personal gain. Plus, keeping a connection to the Upside Down would mean keeping a connection to all of the evil that comes with it. Will has spent years trying to escape the Upside Down's influence. Why would he want to stay connected to it forever? The more likely scenario is that Will's powers are temporary. They exist only as long as the final battle lasts. Will use them to help defeat Vecna, rescue the kidnapped children, close the gates, and save Hawkins. And then once it's all over, the powers will fade away, Will become a normal teenager again, and honestly, that might be the happiest ending for him. No more visions, no more neck tingles, no more connection to evil, just peace. But here's a theory that some fans have been talking about. What if Will's blood really was permanently altered when Vecna flayed him? What if the mutation that happened to his body can't be undone, even if the hive mind is destroyed? In that case, Will might have latent abilities that stay with him forever, even after Vecna is gone. again. He might not be able to control Demogorgons anymore, but maybe he'd still have enhanced intuition or the ability to sense danger or some other psychic gift that comes from having hive mind particles in his blood. There's evidence for this in the stage play The First Shadow. Henry Creel's powers didn't go away when he left Dimension X. The Mind Flayer permanently changed him. His blood stayed mutated. His abilities stayed active. He could use telekinesis and telepathy for the rest of his life, even when he wasn't near the Upside Down. If the same thing happened to Will, he might keep some version of his powers permanently. Noah Schnapp, the actor who plays Will, said something interesting in interviews. He described Will's journey in Season 5 as a self-acceptance arc. Will has spent the whole series struggling with who he is. He's been called sensitive, weak, different. He's struggled with his sexuality and his identity. He's felt like an outsider in his own friend group. But in Season 5, Will finally accepts himself, and that self-acceptance is what unlocks powers. The Duffer Brothers confirmed this. Matt Duffer said that Will had to grow as a human and become a fully formed version of who he is. He had to truly accept who he is. And once he was able to do that, he was able to harness these incredible powers. This suggests that Will's mental and emotional state directly affects his ability to use the hive mind. When Will was scared, ashamed, and hiding from himself, he couldn't access his powers. But when he embraced who he really is, when he stopped being afraid of his own identity, the powers became available. It's like the hive mind was always there waiting for him, but Will had to be emotionally ready to tap into it. Self-acceptance unlocked his potential. This is a beautiful message, honestly. It's saying that your greatest strength comes from accepting yourself completely. When you stop hiding, when you stop being ashamed, when you embrace every part of who you are, that's when you become truly powerful. Will's powers aren't just about telekinesis and controlling monsters. They're about self-confidence, self-love, and inner strength. Robin played a huge role in this. Throughout the first 4 episodes, Will gravitates toward Robin because she's openly gay and comfortable with herself. She went through the same struggle Will is going through. She spent years hiding who she was, feeling scared and different. But in Season 3, she came out to Steve. She accepted herself, and now she's confident, happy, and proud of who she is. Will sees Robin as a role model. He asks her questions about how she got to where she is. He wants to know how she became so sure of herself. And Robin tells him something that changes everything. She says that she spent her whole life looking for answers from other people, but the answers were inside her all along. She just had to stop being scared. That speech is what Will thinks about in the moment when he's about to die. Vecna has just called him weak and broken. The Demogorgons are about to kill his friends. Will is at his lowest point. And in that moment, Robin's words echo in his mind. The answers are inside you. Stop being scared. Accept who you are. And that's when Will unlocks his powers and saves everyone. So Will's abilities aren't just about being connected to the hive mind. They're also about emotional growth. The physical connection has always been there since Season 1. But Will couldn't use it until he was mentally and emotionally ready. He had to complete his character arc. He had to accept himself. And once he did, the powers activated. This raises another question. Could other people learn to use the hive mind if they accepted themselves the way Will did? What about Mac? She's been connected to Vecna since he put her in a coma. What about the 13 kids Vecna just flayed? If they go through the same self-acceptance journey Will went through, could they all unlock powers? Could there be an entire team of psychic kids fighting alongside Eleven and Will in the final battle? The Duffer Brothers hinted at this when they said, "You'll see how far Will can take his powers as the season continues." They also said they've been planning Will's powers for as long as they can remember. This wasn't a last-minute decision. They've been building toward this since Season 1, which means they probably have plans for how Will's powers will evolve and what role they'll play in defeating Vecna. One theory is that Will teach Eleven how to access the hive mind too. Eleven has her own powers that come from within her, but she's never been able to tap into Vecna's network the way Will can. If Will shows her how to do it, they could team up. Eleven provides the raw psychic force, while Will provides the connection and control. Together, they'd be unstoppable. Mike even said this in episode 4. When Will's powers activated, the other characters were shocked. But Mike, who knows Will better than anyone, said something that's important. He said, now we have 2 Eleven. He recognizes that Will and Eleven are both psychic powerhouse now. They're a team, a duo. The party finally has 2 wizards instead of just 1, but there are differences between them that matter. Eleven's powers are destructive. She throws things, breaks things, fights with overwhelming force. Will's powers are controlling. He manipulates, redirects, takes over enemy forces, and uses them against themselves. Eleven is offense. Will is strategy. Eleven is the hammer. Will is the scalpel. They complement each other perfectly. In Dungeons & Dragons terms, which Stranger Things has always used as symbolism, Eleven is a mage. She has raw magical power that she can use however she wants. Will is a cleric. He channels power from a higher source, in this case the hive mind, and uses it for protection and support. Clerics can't do as much damage as mages, but they have other advantages. They can heal, protect, control undead creatures, and support their party members. Will has been called called Will the Wise since Season 1. His Dungeons & Dragons character is a cleric, and now in Season 5 he's finally living up to that name. He's using cleric-style powers to protect his friends, control the undead creatures of the Upside Down, and turn the enemy's strength against them. It's everything his character was set up to do from the very beginning. Let's talk about the similarities between Will's powers and Vecna's powers, because they're almost identical. When Vecna uses his abilities, his eyes go white. When Will uses his abilities, his eyes go white. When Vecna kills someone, he snaps their bones telekinetically. When Will kills Demogorgons, he snaps their bones telekinetically. They both get nosebleeds. They both need to concentrate and gesture with their arms. They both see through the eyes of creatures connected to the hive mind. This isn't a coincidence. Will is basically using Vecna's own powers against him. He's become a mirror image of the villain. And that creates really interesting parallels between their characters. Both of them were sensitive, artistic kids who didn't fit in. Both of them were taken to the Upside Down as children. Both of them were connected to the hive mind and changed by it. But their responses to that trauma were completely opposite. Henry Creel became angry, bitter, and evil. He blamed humanity for his suffering. He wanted to destroy the world and remake it in his own image. He let his pain turn him into a monster. Will Byers stayed kind, compassionate, and good. He held on to his friends and family. He chose love over hate. He let his pain make him stronger instead of letting it corrupt him. The final battle between Will and Vecna won't just be about powers, it will be about philosophy. It will be about which path is right. The path of destruction or the path healing. The path of isolation or the path of connection. The path of giving in to darkness or the path of choosing light even when everything is dark. Will represents everything Vecna could have been if he'd made different choices. And Vecna knows this. In episode 4, Vecna completely underestimates Will. He calls him weak and broken. He thinks Will proved that children are easy to control. But the Duffer brothers confirmed that Vecna is wrong about Will. Matt Duffer said that Vecna perceives Will the way so many others have in his life, which is as weak, as nothing, as incapable of achieving anything great. So he completely underestimates him. This is Vecna's fatal flaw. He's arrogant. He thinks he's the most powerful being in existence. He doesn't believe anyone can challenge him, especially not a scared kid from Hawkins, but Will just proved him wrong. Will took control of Vecna's own monsters and killed them. Will showed that the hive mind isn't Vecna's alone. It's a network that can be hacked, hijacked, and used against him. What happens next is the biggest mystery. Volume 2 drops on Christmas Day, December 25th, 2025. The series finale airs on New Year's Eve, December 31, 2025. In those final 4 episodes, we're going to see the full extent of Will's powers. We're going to see how the battle between him and Vecna escalates, and we're going to find out if Will's connection to the hive mind is a blessing or a curse. Some fans are worried that Vecna will possess Will again. They think Vecna will take advantage of Will's open connection to the hive mind and use it to take over his body. If that happens, Will could become a weapon against his own friend. Imagine Will's powers being used to hurt Mike, Lucas, Dustin, and the others. That would be devastating, and it would force Eleven to fight someone she loves in order to save the world. Other fans think Will sacrifice himself. They think he'll use all his power in one final attack that destroys Vecna and the Upside Down, but kills Will in the process. This would be tragic, but heroic. Will started the series as the victim who needed saving. He would end it as the hero who saved everyone else. The story would come full circle, but it would also mean Will dies, which would break everyone's heart. The Duffer brothers have said the ending won't be like Game of Thrones. There won't be a Red Wedding style massacre where beloved characters die for shock value. They want the ending to feel earned and satisfying, not depressing. So hopefully, Will survives. Hopefully he gets to live a normal life after everything is over. Hopefully his powers fade away peacefully and he gets to just be a kid again. But there's one more possibility that fans are talking about. What if Will doesn't lose his powers permanently? What if the connection to the hive mind stays dormant inside him, ready to activate again if the Upside Down ever threatens the world in the future? This would set up potential spin-offs or movies where an adult Will Byers has to use powers again to fight new threats. The Duffer brothers have confirmed they're working on spin-off shows set in the Stranger Things universe. They haven't revealed what those shows will be about, but a series focused on Will dealing with his lingering connection to the Upside Down would be incredible. Imagine Will in college trying to live a normal life, but he keeps having vision. The hive mind is supposedly dead, but something is stirring, something survived, and Will is the only one who can sense it. That would be a perfect continuation of his story. It would let him keep his powers in a limited way without undermining the victory at the end of season 5, and it would give Noah Schnapp a chance to explore the character as an adult dealing with the long-term effects of childhood trauma and psychic abilities. For now though, we have to focus focus on what's happening in Season 5. Will has powers. They come from the hive-mind connection Vecna created when he flayed Will back in 1983. They're proximity-based, meaning Will can only use them when he's near the Upside Down or its creatures. They manifest as the ability to control anything connected to the hive mind, including Demogorgons, Demobats, and Vine. They look almost identical to Vecna's powers, complete with white eyes, nosebleeds, and bone-breaking telekinesis. Will got these powers because Vecna flayed him and changed his blood, but he couldn't access them until he accepted himself emotionally. The powers are probably temporary and will disappear when the hive mind is destroyed, but there's a chance the mutation to Will's blood is permanent, which means he might retain some form of psychic ability even after Vecna is defeated. What we know for sure is that Will Byers is no longer the helpless victim. He's not the kid who needs rescuing anymore. He's a hero with incredible abilities. He's Vecna's worst nightmare. He's living proof that trauma doesn't have to define you, that pain can make you stronger instead of breaking you, and that accepting yourself is the key to unlocking your true potential. The boy who vanished in 1983 is back, and this time, he's not running. He's fighting, and he just might be the one who saves the world.